Leaders in tech are burning out at an absurd rate. Ctrl+Alt+Delete with Lisa Duerre is a no BS conversation with one of the top female executives who spent over 25 years in Silicon Valley. If you're suffering from the always-on, never good enough, will replace you today machine called the tech space, this show's for you. Here's Lisa.
If you are a woman in tech, or you know a woman in tech, or you manage a woman in tech, I bet you know right now things are not that great for women in tech. Today's guest has been on a mission to reverse the exodus of women in tech. And I am so excited to have her here. Karen Worstell, thank you so much for joining the Ctrl+Alt+Delete podcast today.
I am thrilled to be here with you again, Lisa, and continue this conversation. It's very exciting for me.
Okay. And listen, we all know somebody that knows a woman in tech, or perhaps someone who's not there right now. So everybody lean on in, because what's going to happen today and what you need to know, full transparency, Karen and I are in cahoots. We host a clubhouse room together on Sundays about burnout prevention and rebooting. She is on such a mission that I just raised my hand and said, how can I play with you? And she's like, come on down, the more the merrier, which is always what an ally does, right? You lift others up. And so I'm going to give you her formal intro, but I want to let you know, this doesn't even do her justice. I'm just so in awe of what she brings, but let me just give it to you straight, because she's talking to you from the streets. She knows what's up. Mm-hmm. So Karen is a 20-year plus cybersecurity executive and serial chief information security officer for multiple iconic brands. She's also a chaplain. Based on her experience in tech and her observations of the level of distress of people in tech and her own burnout, as well as people in healthcare delivery, Karen focused on changing the narrative in the workplace. She founded Mojo Maker for Women in Tech to help reverse the exodus of women from the tech sector, and she is the host of the podcast by the same name. And spoiler alert, I wore these colors for you today because they match your brand.
There you go. Yeah, you're on brand for me. Thank you so much. I'm not even wearing my brand colors.
Yeah. So I was on Karen's podcast a while back, and when the graphic went out, I was like, I love those colors. Wait, I have a sweater like that. So yeah, anyway, Karen, oh my gosh, thank you for doing the work that you do. I just want to jump right in and, really help people know why what we're talking about is so important. So tell me, why did you choose this mission? Give me the backstory. What's really going on, and why does this matter to you?
Sure. I took a hiatus from my technology career, starting in about 2013, and decided to get another master's degree and went into chaplaincy training, which I really, really loved. It was at the perfect balance for me from my kind of command and control style that I had adopted in many ways at work. And, being so focused on delivery and everything, and to go step into this state of being and trying to just be present. And so that was fantastic training for me. But one of the things that happened was that I observed the level of distress among people who are working in healthcare delivery. And this is pre-COVID. It was already really high. And we were dealing with issues like physician suicide, staff burnout, staff shortages, all kinds of things. So and part of the role as the chaplain is not just to be there for patients and families, although that's a very huge part of the job, but also to be there for staff. So I had that, and I was like, things that make you go, Like I was watching that and saying, wow, I saw that level of distress in the tech sector. A lot of people that, would come into my office and sit down and we'd have a chat. So that was kind of putting a puzzle piece together. And then an article came out in 2016, and one of the things that it highlighted, it was from the AAUW, and they said that women were making gains in STEM, although small, across all of the STEM fields, even engineering. But when it came to computing professions, women were dropping like flies. We were leaving the profession. So from the late 1980s to 2016, that number had dropped from 34% of the technical computing workforce to only about 23% now, and it's continued to decline. I think it's around 18% now.
Wow.
And that really bothered me because I knew for myself and my story that being in technology and having that opportunity to make my mark and my impact there in that industry was so important to me. And it also benefited my family, I mean, financially, and by extension, my community. So I sort of set out to examine what was going on here. And in the process, there is something that really struck me, sort of like a ton of bricks. And there's a principle in chaplaincy called the principle of proximity. And that means that the chaplain doesn't sit in her field tent, his or her field tent, away from the action, waiting for someone to come from the front line and make an appointment. They go sit in the foxhole. And for me, I realized at that moment that my foxhole was in technology. So whether I'm there as a technologist or whether I'm there as a person who can make space and hold space for other people as they're, trying to make a better career for themselves, that's where I belonged. So I left my work as a chaplain. I was at the VA hospital in Portland, and left my work there and began working on what can we do to solve the problem for women in tech. And Mojo Maker was born out of that.
When I think about what you just said, the thing that really, really stands out for me is that aren't we all on a journey, right? When you think about all of our personal experiences lead us to something. And, for me, I've shared with you my journey when I burnt out in tech and then rebooted and went back in. That's when I was like, okay, I have to do something too. And I'm so happy. I'm not happy that you had the experience. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to yay, what a gift. But what I want to say about it is that you had this calling to do something so different, to be able to actually get grounded and be of service. And that it comes full circle for you to put those two together, because we know it's a crisis right now. We know that this is going to have generational effects. Yeah. We know, even the latest statistics, when I was doing some work last week, 1.5 million women have still left the workforce. Not all in tech, I understand that, but Houston, we got a problem.
Yeah.
So
especially with COVID. I mean, we took a huge step back. I hear numbers, and I don't have official statistics of my own, but I hear numbers from other people saying things like the women in the technology workforce, which has not been the easiest place for women to work over the last 30 years. And we are set back 10 years as a result of the COVID pandemic. So for the number of women who had to make a choice that you can only cram so many potatoes into a potato sack, That's what my dad used to tell me. So the idea that we have all of this stuff demanding our time at work, and then, as we were seeing this happening with, okay, we've got so much on our plate already, but thank God we have opportunities for those women who have households and are mothers or have extended family members that they are responsible for. You can't outsource everything, and I've tried.
As have I, my friend. Yeah. When you think about the women in tech, from a salary standpoint, at least in Silicon Valley, where I spent my career, you could hire a house cleaner. You could have your groceries delivered. A lot of people had nannies, right? You could pay for childcare. Yeah. And when COVID hit, the world stopped, and it's all that outsourcing that could at least keep it running, keep the system, which is your household, running, stopped. Yep. It was so interesting. I really want to get your perspective on this. So I was talking to a client yesterday. This is real time. Talking to a client yesterday. She says, we have diversity, inclusion, and equity conversations now at all our offsites for our leaders. And some of the men in the room were like, I don't care if you're a man or a woman. I don't care if you're black, brown, or white. That's not it. That's not what I care about. I care about that you can get the job done. And there was a very small number of women, I think maybe 2 in the room. The rest were men. And, there's something about being the only one or the fewer in the room where the power, is off. But these women chose to step up and say, you should care, and they were talking to me going, what should I have said? Did I do it right? What do you think? And I'm thinking, we have the mojo maker here. Like, I want to ask you the question. So in a situation where you might be the only one in the room, or it's someone you really love who's not in tune enough to really understand, like, we have an opportunity to educate in a way that we want them to hear it so that they can see why it's important. So why is it important for women to stay in tech and thrive in tech? Like, how can we help leaders that don't, I'm going to use air quotes for anyone listening, get it? How do you help them get it, Karen? What's the secret here?
Yeah, well, I wish I knew the answer, but I'll tell you, there's a story, and I usually try to tell a story so that I'm not being, it's a great way to make an illustration without being super direct, right?
I love it. Yeah.
But one of the things that I invite people to consider is that we have created the great corporate blender, the corporate bland blender, right? And what we do is we bring people from every conceivable diverse perspective, and we put them in the corporate blender and turn them all to bland. It's like, I call it bland beige, right? We take what that does is, and not every single company is like this, but those that haven't really got it yet, bring in all of this incredibly powerful diversity of thought, because that's who we are as a community, as a world, right? As a population of customers or whatever that might be. They look at things from all different angles. And when we are delivering services to our clients, we have to be able to look at things through their lenses, and not just the headspace, but have actually enough of the variety internally to be able to step into that space empathically, if you want to call it that, right? It's not my lived experience to know what it's like to be Black in America. I need people who have that experience, and I need to honor the fact that they have that experience by not trying to pretend that that's not who they are. And that's critically important. And the companies, we've got the proof, right? That the companies who are kind of cracking that problem open and solving it are getting better results. So it's the right thing to do, but it's also getting better results for companies. And so I just really invite people to not adopt the bland beige, mindset, which is what it really is when people say, I don't see color. I don't see you. You to me are a unit that gets work done, is about as bland beige as it gets.
Man, okay.
Now, my problem is I would probably say that in the meeting.
Right. No, I love it. And here's the thing that really, like, I got a tickle in my throat when you were talking. So to me, that's a really divine download. The lived experience, right? So when someone is saying, I don't see color or gender, I just need the engineer to get the job done, right? The reality is the lived experience is what does make it richer. And I think, you and I talk about burnout a lot, right? And I know women in tech are burning out like crazy. I mean, listen, tech is the always on, never good enough, will replace you tomorrow, right? So that is bland beige, isn't it? Like, I never really, you and I've talked so much, I've never made that connection before. But to have a leader who is like, I value opinions, I want this to work for everybody. So we're going to have a diverse team on, making these decisions and having input. You're just stronger for it. So it's almost like it's so obvious. Like, how do you convince someone? It's so obvious. So I really appreciate this kind of analogy that you shared. I think that can be really powerful for people. Yeah. And one of the things that I heard the other day that really, really struck with me, and I didn't know this, and I do a lot, I live in tech, but somebody had said, do you realize that some of the AI that's being leveraged right now, even for like a soap dispenser, a white hand goes under it and the soap recognizes your hand, but a black hand goes under it and they don't recognize it as a hand. And I'm like, boy, I thought I had a handle on this, but it goes way deeper than And I was just so blown away by that. So that's another case to be like, you need the lived experience to even test out what you're doing,
Right.
much less be part of the design conversations in the first place.
Right. One of my favorite things to do is to go Google search on, or Bing, or I'm an equal opportunity searcher, so in case anybody wonders, but to go out and do a search on technology fails.
Oh, love it.
Because you can trace back, and these are not small fails. These are multi-billion dollar write-offs in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
That product worked fine, design was fine. There were so many things, but it wasn't appropriate for the audience. And the issue that we have right now in tech, and why this is such a critical issue in my mind, is that technology runs everything. It runs all the decision-making systems. It runs our financial systems. By default, it runs our financial systems in some cases, right? It runs our smart cities. It runs everything. And if we are baking bias into that, it's like carving it into bedrock. It won't come out easily. And this is the time. We already have a history of seeing what happens when that is done, just like you mentioned with the soap dispenser. Voice recognition is another place where that happens pretty frequently, right? Women's voices don't get recognized. And so we need to get this whole perspective in there and start engineering all of our systems in a way that is an inclusive engineering function. Otherwise, we will be baking inherent bias into everything. We see it in so many places that are so painful. We see it in the way our systems recognize people or don't recognize people on camera. You know, and we're reading more and more about that. But yeah, this is a critical issue for us. So, I mean, there should be I think it's a little bit far-fetched for most people who, you know, we are all dealing with a lot of things in our lives, and we all tend to focus on the things that are in front of us, that are part of our daily life. It's up to us who are in technology to do the work for technology that says, this is why this is so important for all of us to do it. Let's figure out how to make this happen. So not wait for somebody else to tell us.
Well, spoken from the Mojo Maker founder. Do you know, like, this is it. Like, you're so succinct when you say it too. So I feel like we're gonna have all these bite-sized pieces that people can even leverage, right? So when you're listening to this episode and you feel like somebody doesn't get it, just share the episode, have a conversation with your team. What's the reaction to this, right? Because what Karen's talking about is really actionable. It's you can lean into a conversation, look around and go, what are we missing on this project? Who isn't represented? What should we be doing?
That's
right?
the question we should be asking. Who isn't here?
Who isn't here?
And how do we find them? And so I hear it so much over the last 4 years. I've heard this, well, we can't find the people. And I'm like, you don't catch fish when you're throwing your hook into the wrong pool.
Totally.
Like, right?
Yeah.
So you've got the HR background, and you know how true this is, right? The whole recruiting process, the whole place of where you go look. There was a really good article in Harvard Business Review not long ago that essentially said, we have to not just decide we're going to do this at work, because we can't do it at work unless we do it in our life, right? So it's human nature for us to want to hang out with people who are like us. It makes, there's a shared culture kind of a thing. And so it does make things go a little more easily. But the truth of it is that we tend to recruit and we tend to hire from the pools of people that we know and who's in our circle. So in order for us to really make this change happen in tech, we need to change the way we network. We need to change the way we hang out with other people. We need to change that, if we have a club that we go to, that we hang out at, and that club all looks like us, we aren't going to get there from here.
Yeah.
And it's asking people to do something that actually goes against the easy and asks us to do something challenging that will make us think about it all of the time. But that's what, I mean, so many people like to practice mindfulness. This is a way, this is a form of mindfulness.
Oh
Am
my
I,
gosh.
am
Yeah.
I mindful inclusively?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it requires intention too. So even me on my own journey, I used to always talk about women in tech, and then I never really brought color into it, right? Until the Black Lives Matter movement really happened. And I have a daughter now. So I got really curious and started thinking back to history and really, having conversations about school. And one of the things I realized was I had privilege as a white woman in tech. And that sounds so funny to say because I was so like women, women, right? And I thought, there's so much that I didn't even see because of my own lived experience that I really started to get curious and open the conversations. And I'm going to tell you, I flopped, man. I said some things and I'm like, how did that come out of my mouth? Right. And this whole being human, I thought, you know what? I now know I have to do something about this because I clearly don't have all the insight that I thought I did. And I'm going to go be curious and I'm going to be imperfect and I'm going to figure it out. But um, boy, when you flop those conversations, right, and you think you really know what you're talking about and you don't, that's a huge awareness. And every time I flopped and I had the conversation, someone would say, "Thank you for trying." Like they never be like, "Oh, you're a jerk," and I'm never talking to you again. It's like, "Thank you for trying." And Brene Brown calls it circling back. Like I'd go off and reflect and come back and say, "Can we revisit that?" Because this is what's been going on, and I think that's missing at work. I think people are so afraid to have these conversations to even open it up. They just like dismiss it all and keep on going. And I really believe that a way for this to change is for people to actually do it poorly at first and circle back and have space to be human. And with your intention of being curious, like state that, be
Yeah.
very transparent that I'm uncomfortable and I'm probably going to mess this up, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know it's important.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. There's probably no one right way. My choice is, first of all, let me say, I have fluffed it so many times so badly. And I just have to own that, right? I mean, there's probably people who might listen to the show and they're like going, "Yeah, I remember when you like did this thing."
Right?
And yes, I did. And uh and the commitment to that is not to shut that off and pretend like it didn't happen, but to say that that can't happen again. How do I learn and do better?
Right. Yeah.
And so as we're on that path of how do I change this and learn better, being under what I call that big umbrella of mercy, right, with a heavy dose of grace is been really helpful. But I will also say that I have colleagues who also feel like extending grace is something that they've done for generations. They haven't really had a choice.
Yeah.
Grace was the only option, and they're really tired of that.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't rely on grace as the de facto way we're going to handle this. Like, I'm going to go in, if I fluff it, oh well, grace. But to
Right.
say,
Yes.
all right, I fluffed that. I am sorry, and let's try again. Like you just said, I
Yeah.
love that. It's
Yeah.
like we can't. We have to change it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I really appreciate about what you're doing for women in tech in this mass exodus that's happening is you're coming at it from so many different angles. So like one of it is, just gender. Okay. Then another of it is culture. Another of it is recruiting. I mean, there's so many layers of this. And you and I have this common mission about eradicating burnout as well. And I think this is a good segue. So I want to ask you this question. When I think about women in tech and how we were talking about the beige blender and how we look like our who we surround ourselves with, I guess I fundamentally have an opinion on this, and I want to see if I would love you to educate me and see if I'm on the right track or if you want to steer me in a different way. I think the way we work has to change. That if you want women in tech, you need a flexible work environment. And if you want women in tech, you're going to need to figure out how to staff. Now, I get that it's all about profits, people. I get it. And if you staff with amazing women, because I work with women back to work, getting the returners back in, they're so loyal and they're willing to do it all and they're all in and they're so excited about it, but they're going to need flexibility. And I think that that's true for even anyone who needs extra grace right now, or even a little bit of grace, because they're so they're tired and weighed down and like it's all heavy. But yet tech is just like, nope, next tape out, next product release, go, go, go. And I feel I guess my question for you is, do you agree with me, or what am I missing? Because I think you can have profits, productivity, and flexibility. I don't think you have to choose revenue over relationships. And I think tech forgets that there's human beings doing the work. In some. I'm not saying every company's like this, but I believe it's a culture thing.
Yeah.
And I just want your thoughts on that. Educate me, agree, disagree. It's all good. You know how we go. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So not like I love that you said not everybody's like this. And for sure, not every manager is like this. I've been fortunate to have incredibly great managers for the most part. The 2% that we're not are extraordinarily notable.
Yeah.
And we
Right.
won't talk about that. But yes, we need to have a environment that does allow for people to do their best work. So if I have an environment where I say, these are the boundaries, these are the rules, this is how everybody's going to be treated the same. And I've got two people who are carrying like a really incredible load on the outside, that whatever that might be. In my case, I took care of elders at home 5 times. And that put an enormous strain on everything. And if I don't have the latitude to be able to make accommodations for that, I will never be my best contribution at work. And everybody loses in that case, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a win-win when we create an environment where people all shine. I think you get much higher morale. Like if you want to do morale, don't do a morale budget and go get a drink cart and go around office to office at 5 o'clock. I mean, I've actually participated in that.
Yep.
And it's just so misplaced. So if you really want to have morale, it's like, what do you need in order to be the best you can be at work? What does that look like? And there's models of organizations that have done that, and I'm just listening now to Tammy Simon's book called Being True, and she's the publisher for Sounds True. And I just want to give her a shout out because this is the most amazing book. But as a publisher, a very large publishing house in a very specific niche, they decided to focus on culture. And she talks in the book about what a difference that made for her company. And there's a number of companies that are like that. So the other thing I just want to kind of offer to people is invite you to consider that the success of your outer life, of your business, is inextricably wound around your inner health, like the health of your inner life. And if we can't help people have a healthy inner life, not that I need to be responsible for it, but that they own it and we don't get in the way of it, then we will never have the company that we dream of in terms of its productivity and creativity. So
Yeah,
that's my take.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate you gave me a couple of nuggets here. And the thing I know is that I really want to highlight, it's not everywhere. And I think if you're a leader listening in right now, you have a lot more power than you think, right? Like coming from HR, I'm gonna look around. This is when I'm in corporate, look around. There are rules that are bendable, people, right? But if you don't ask, then there's nothing you can do. So as a leader, if someone on your team needs some flexibility and you don't feel like you can give it to them, go to your HR partner and be like, hey, so-and-so is amazing. This is in the way. I have some ideas, and Jedi mind trick the HR person and be like, I look forward to you helping me solve this problem. I'm excited to collaborate with you on a solution. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. You kind of just wave the wand and you hold this HR person, your partner, capable and willing, rather than HR is the police and they make all the rules and they don't get it. HR gets it. They don't want to be told what you're doing after the fact. They want to know ahead of time so they can partner with you, help you find extra budget. Hey, finance, it's quarter close. We got some money. This guy needs it for so-and-so. You know, and that they'll work with the employee too, to be creative with that. I mean, how much more power do you have that you don't know? You know, oh my gosh. I mean, talk to me about this. Where have you been creative, Karen? Let's give some people some tangible ideas on how, as a leader, regardless of your position, what have you done to advocate for your team and create, you know, a unique situation so that they could.
Oh, goodness. I want to caveat this by saying I learned really well from my mistakes.
Of course. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I will say that when we were at we had a Silicon Valley startup. We were spun out of Stanford Research Institute International, the SRI International.
Mm-hmm.
And during the dot-com bubble, our investors pulled out, and we had a very, very tenuous situation for everybody who was in the company at the time. And I was the CEO of the company for a short while, with the specific responsibility to do the media and investor tour and get the company sold. Okay, so here we are in a situation where we've got a lot of people whose livelihoods are dependent upon us, who have families. Yes, there were layoffs at different points of time, but at this point we had a core group of people. I think about 135 people were all that was left, and we had to somehow get through the next few months while we were getting the company sold to continue doing the things we were known for, which was highly creative, innovative work. We had to continue to deliver on our clients, you know, our commitments to clients. We had to continue creating new product, and in the background, I'm going into a board meeting every single Monday, and it was a little bit like waiting for a pope to be, you know, picked, because it was like you waited for the, you know, the smoke that would come up, and we would know if I was going to walk out of that room, say everybody's laid off, go home, or we had another week to live. And that was my dilemma as a leader. And I won't say that this is necessarily the very best thing I could have done. We already had like foosball tables and a stocked fridge and all of that kind of jazz. But I came out and I said, look, every single person in here has my blessing and my expectation that you will do what is right for your family, that you will make the decisions that you need to make. And I want you to stay. Obviously, for what we're trying to accomplish here, I need you, but that's not the most important thing. And I don't know your story, but if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. And the thing that tells me that that was the right choice was that we had 0% attrition.
Wow.
Nobody left. And they knew that they could at any time, and that I, you know, I understood, but they didn't go. So I think sometimes people just need to know that we see them.
Oh, this is a mic drop moment. You didn't throw money at it. You didn't change anything. You honest to God dealt with what I heard you say was, here's the reality and here's how I feel about it. Right? I see you. I get that this is uncertain. I understand you've got, you know, this is so complex and uncertain. If you need to go, go. And basically, I'm not going to retaliate. I'm not going to badmouth you. You know, all of the things that I think people are afraid of. Like how many companies I've seen in tech where if someone leaves, they're treated, someone resigns, they're treated so poorly because you left me hanging, instead of like, wow, good for you. You know, let's part ways in a positive way so that we're all feeling good about it. And it's just, it's like, you've left us. And so what you're modeling here, what you're sharing, I think is so important, especially for women leaving the workforce right now. Don't make them feel crappy. support them and see what happens too, right? It's a beautiful example. I love it.
That I had nothing to work with. So all I can,
Yeah.
it's just like, I see you, like, we get this, we're in it together, and you need to do whatever it is you need to do.
Yeah.
But I have never been perfect at this. I get that there's been so many cases where and this is part of the burnout conversation that you and I have, right?
Yeah.
When I'm in my burnout brain, I'm not making those kinds of magnanimous, wonderful moments
Yeah.
for anybody.
Right. Exactly.
And I've certainly been, I'm sure there's people that can remember some of those moments that I've, been a part of. And all I can do now is say yes. And
Mhm.
that was an amazing learning moment, and it won't
Yeah.
happen again.
Well, welcome to being human. Do you know,
Yeah,
like,
welcome to being
honest to
human.
goodness, like leadership doesn't come with like, I think of it like when I had my daughter, there was no playbook, it was like everybody had an opinion on how you should do it. And I just had to figure out how to do it myself with her and my husband. But talk about being overwhelmed. And I think leaders right now, there's no playbook for dealing with a pandemic, post-pandemic hybrid work. How do you be flexible when we're used to just telling everybody, be in the office? There's no playbook for this. And so I feel like it's such an opportunity to bring your humanness in. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying, listen, I believe love belongs at work. And people always look at me like I'm nutballs. I don't even care. I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about love for humanity, love for your fellow colleague, empathy, social, and what is it called? Emotional intelligence, like just recognizing there's so much more to this. And so your example, I think, is so awesome because there was nothing else except for you, your values, and your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times that's all people need is just to feel witnessed. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we do in Clubhouse. It's not like Karen and I in
Yeah.
Clubhouse are like teaching classes. Karen
Right.
and I literally host a room. We open up the doors, people show up, and it's ask me anything. And we just talk from our heart, share our own experience. And people come back week after week saying, I tried that. This helped. Thanks for seeing me. I didn't even know how to talk about it.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true. Yeah, very true.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about burnout, and I'm going to ask you, when you think about all of that's going on and everything that we've talked about, even in our, in our podcast time together, or in our clubhouse rooms, and just in life, what's your hope for the future? Like, what's one thing we can think about that this like lens on burnout and lens on women leaving tech, knowing that it's being talked about more, imagine a future where these are no longer here. Like, what's possible? What's the hope that you have? What do you hold on to?
Yeah, I was just, I was just listening to so I get the Wall Street Journal on my Audible account, and I can listen to it every morning.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how we're already in the beginnings of unprecedented growth. Like, people are talking about, this is what the Spanish flu was like, now this is the roaring 20s. Like, we have, things just feel so hopeful and open, and things as we're, kind of coming off the tail end of this pandemic. And I think we're going to see like lots of shift, tons of shift. And there's things that we've never had to deal with before that we're going to have to deal with. So we may have a lot of growth. We'll have talent shortages. We had them before the pandemic in some places. Now we have them everywhere.
Yeah.
We have people who are struggling to recover from the pandemic, and that's a very uneven application. It's not like it affected everybody equally. And so we're going to have to deal with that challenge. We're going to have to deal with the fact that we've got entire countries and populations of people who are still laid low by this pandemic. And we're going to be moving in a world that looks geopolitically and demographically really different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy, I think, in our typical fashion of overachievers, right, to want to look at everything and kind of like, I'm going to deal with this and I'm going to deal with that, and I'm being pulled in a million different directions. You said something though that I want to kind of circle back to, because I think this is
Sure.
really important as we navigate this.
Mhm.
Um, it's tempting, and this used to, so there's this concept of a primary question. What is the primary question that drives you at the core of everything you do?
Mhm.
And I realized at one point in my career, for most of it probably, that my primary question was, what do I need to fix today? Which
Mhm.
meant that I was always looking for what was broken.
Yep.
And the good news with that was I was an incredibly valuable asset
Yeah.
when a company needed somebody to fix things,
Mhm.
because I could see that, right? That was what I was wired for.
Yeah.
But the presupposition of that is everything is broken. And in a world where we have so much changing and so much in flux, if we take the primary question of everything is broken, what do we have to fix? I believe we're gonna miss the huge opportunity to transform the world we're in. And my new primary question, when somebody pointed that out to me and they said, you need a new primary question,
Mm.
my new primary question is, how can I see and celebrate the beauty in every person around me?
Say it again. I want to make sure this really lands. The new primary question is,
How can I see and celebrate the beauty in every person I see around me?
mm,
It changes, it's a game changer when I'm no less productive than I was before, but my wiring and my brain is focused on the relationship, and I see you, I value you,
mhm,
I see you in the positive, not in
mm,
the what's broken
yeah,
category.
yeah,
And that's what I focus on. I believe if we can do more of that, and I'm not going to be perfect at it, right?
yeah,
I have a lot of history doing what's broken, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it's on my board. I have it up on my whiteboard right here so that I see it every single day.
Mm,
And if we can focus on, what is right, how do we make it more right? How do we make sure that it's more inclusive? How do we make sure that I'm focused on the right things and I'm not letting myself being pulled in a bazillion different directions because I think everything's broken and I have to fix it?
yeah,
I think we stand a much better chance of kind of surfing this heavy wave that's kind
mhm,
of coming our way,
yeah.
and take advantage of the incredible world changing, never before in history have we had the entire world involved in something and on a reset like we have right now.
Mhm.
I'm excited about it. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this kind of conversation that we have, there can be so much about what's wrong and we're going to fix it, and blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly why I asked you about the hope, because here's what I know. Energy, your thoughts create your energy creates momentum. And I don't want to sit in the sludge about what's broken. I want to stay in the space of what's possible and where we're going.
Yeah.
And when you said that, I realized I've had my primary question and I really never knew it, but mine is always, what would love do? And I think that's why I talk about love at work. It's always been, and I'm not talking codependent love or romantic
Right,
love,
right,
it's
right.
just love for humanity, right? And oh my gosh, everyone listening, aren't we all wired in tech to identify the problem? It's always about, is there a bug or a code issue? Heck, anyone in cyber, you are wired to do that all day, every day.
Yeah. We
And to be
fully
able to,
agreement. Yeah.
right, to flip that switch and be like, I see value in everyone. What am I looking for? Like what do they say? What you measure changes or whatever. Like what you're looking at matters. Um, I love this primary question. My call to action for everybody right now, ask yourself, just see what shows up. Right. And one of the things that I know for me always helped is, how do you want to feel? Right. How
That
do you
is,
want to
I
feel?
have used your question about how do you want to feel so many times. It's the best
Oh,
question ever,
I love
ever.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you know how I want to feel? Loving, which to me is inclusive, right? Which to me is honest, which to me is human. So yeah, how do I want to feel? Loving. And oh my gosh. Yeah, there you go. So primary question, if you are looking to fix things, here's your opportunity to elevate your own energy, honestly, and your innovation. Quite honestly, that's what happens, right, Karen? I mean, when you're looking at it through the lens you're offering, so much more possibility can be there.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this. I love this. Okay. So let me ask you this for our playlist. We're going to add a Karen song to our playlist. When you are in a funk or feeling down and you know you really need to get out of that, and I believe music is, for the soul, and it helps us there. What's your go-to song?
Oh my gosh, I have a few.
Okay.
So I made a playlist on Spotify, on the Mojo Maker for Women in Tech playlist. So I'm trying to think of there's a song from the movie Zootopia that I really love.
Yes.
And I'm trying to remember the name of it, but the one that I would say is probably the one I use the most is On Top of the World. I like Imagine Dragons.
Oh, Imagine Look at me, I'm going old school. I think I just did like the Carpenters or something. How does On Top of the World by Imagine Dragons go? I don't know if I
Oh my goodness, I'd have to play. I'm not
okay, it's okay.
Carrying the tune in the moment.
Yeah,
there.
I feel you. And then,
that, and the other song is and it's Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons.
Okay, so listen, people, we've got Imagine Dragons in the house, right?
Yeah, Imagine Dragons. It's yeah.
Okay, and I bet you the Zootopia song is one of my faves too. Try Everything.
Yes. Yeah. Try Everything. That's it. Thank you for reminding me. I have. So yeah. So I have my little speaker here, I
love it.
Which I play off my phone, and then if I need to just really rock it out, I'll crank it up in the car and
love it. Yeah. So many times I'll do dance parties. I just was like, I gotta turn it up now, Yeah.
That's the best antidote, honestly. It's like my energy level's really low, blah, blah. I'm not gonna meet with anybody till my energy level is improved. Yeah. So that's when I turn. In fact, I had it on just to make sure, double sure, I had it on before the podcast. So.
Oh, I love it. Well, remember you showed up glowing. I was like, Karen, you look amazing. Yeah. Right? So clearly it works. All right. So where can people find you? Because here's the deal. Karen has amazing resources and tools out there, and I think everyone needs to know how to find you. What's the best way?
Yeah. So you can always get a hold of me at my email, Karen@KarenWorstell.com. I'm all over on LinkedIn and other places. Our website is KarenWorstell.com, and you'll find information there about some of the things that we do and what's coming up and some of our past media events. So yeah.
Awesome. And I want to ask about the one thing that I know everyone needs to know about, and that's your flame-proof guide.
Oh, right.
I don't want to miss that. I think it's just so important to end with something that they can actually download. And listen, people in Clubhouse download this and bring it into meetings. So this is no joke. So yes, tell us about that.
Yeah, we've seen amazing results with that. And in the Clubhouse group, people have used it. And so if you go out, we made a website just for the downloading the Flameproof Guide. It's at beanally.today. Really believe that friends don't let friends burn out. So yeah, go out there, be an ally, and download the guide and read it for yourself, and then use it with your team.
I love it. Karen, I'm so grateful to have met you. I am so grateful to have built this relationship with you to amplify what we work on. And I'm inspired by what you do. For everybody listening in, give her a shout out, go find her on LinkedIn, download the Flameproof Guide, join us in Clubhouse. I mean, you don't want to miss the wisdom and the insight that Karen shares. I mean, it's just, it's life-giving. And I'm very grateful for your time today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. And I just have to say, you know what, it's better together for sure.
Oh,
we make a good team. And
you do make a good
team. Grateful that we're together and doing this work together and on Clubhouse together. So yeah, join us on Sunday nights.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. All right, everybody, make it a great day. Ask yourself what your primary question is. Go listen to a song that lights your spirit and go get that Flameproof Guide. You don't want to miss it. Take good care.
That was great content, but let's be honest. If you don't get the support you need and start making changes in your life and work as a leader in tech, you can expect regret and burnout in the near future. Lisa can help you get kick-ass results at work without burning out, so you can be present for the moments that matter to you and your loved ones. Take your first step at rebootwithlisa.com.